This is the Rush Discuss, where the discuss is Rush. Hello everybody, welcome to the Rush Discuss. Unfortunately, Julianne is not able to be here with me today, but she will be here for the battle episodes. But for this interview episode and next week's interview episode, she was unable to sit in on the interviews, and so it's just me. Today is the drumming of Rush. We're going to talk to a couple excellent drummers and pick their brains about everything drum, and then transition over to Rush. And boy, do we have a treat for you today. Steve from over there at JunkdrummerTV on YouTube, and Jim, who helps out Ryan over at Rush Fans. But two great guys, very different personalities, but very like-minded in a lot of things, as you're going to find out. But without further ado, here is my interview with Steve and Jim. Hello, everybody. We've got a special treat for you guys. We've got Steve from JunkdrummerTV, his YouTube channel, which is pretty dang good. I've watched a few videos there, and I just love them. And then Jim Benner, you probably recognize him from Rush Fans. Great guy. Really has been welcoming to me and my wife and treading these waters of Rush fan interaction.
Those waters are treacherous
yeah.
waters.
But yeah, I just want to go ahead and turn the time over to you guys to introduce yourselves. Start with Jim, if you want to go ahead, tell us a little bit about yourself, when you started drumming and what got you into that.
Okay, so thank you very much, Adam, and it's great. It's great to be on the show. This is very exciting for me. So for drumming, I actually started first playing flute in 5th grade. So I learned how to read music and, all that good stuff. Treble clef, all these bass clef people. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is confusing. And alto clef, yeah, forget it. So I played flute for 2 years. I got picked on because I was a boy playing a quote unquote girl's instrument, even though there's many wonderful famous flautists that are men and that are women too. And I love it. It's still a great instrument. But I decided I wanted to move from the front of the band to the back of the band. Then I saw a drum and bugle corps march by, and oh boy, was I blown away. I was probably in 6th grade when that happened, and I was just freaked out. I'm like, oh my gosh. I looked at my dad. I'm like, I want to do that. So in 7th grade, I guess I was around 12 years old in 7th grade, I started drums. We moved to Texas from Connecticut, and I said, hey, I want to play drums. And the beginning band director said, we got 16 drummers in beginning band. Do you know how to play any other instrument? And I said, no. So he said, okay, you'll be 17th chair. I'm like, okay, works for me. So I did, and I've been playing ever since. I've been playing drums for 42 years. I've played in a variety of different bands. I play in 4 bands right now, even though one hasn't really done much in a while because of COVID. And I've taken drum lessons and for many years, and now I teach. I've been teaching for about the past 2 years. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Thanks so much for that. Steve, what's your origin story?
Well, it was many years ago. But yeah, I'm Steve. I run a YouTube channel, JunkdrummerTV, where I do drum teacher react videos and overall music commentary. I heard "In the Air Tonight" by Phil Collins when I was like 7. And from my mom, she had that No Jacket or Face Value or No Jacket Required, whichever record that is. Because I'm that age. And I knew at 7 or 8, I was like, man, I got to do that. I have to make that drum sound, right? And I had an abstract idea of just wanting to be a drummer, and very similar to Jim. When a parade goes by, sorry, no offense to flutists, when the parade goes by, no one's ever like, holy shit, look at all those flutes. The drums hit, man. I was like, I gotta do this. And I grew up, how can I put it, in a Appalachian Dickensian tale, if you know what I'm saying. And my parents were not in a place to buy me a drum set, so I found the one guy who was in my it's rural area. There's no town, there's no stoplights. And I found this guy, and I found out he had a drum set, and he had a double bass drum set, and it was 2 different drum sets put together. And I went and made him a deal. I was like, and I didn't know that like drum lessons were a thing you could do. I didn't know that was a thing. So I was like 12, 13, and I went to this guy's name was Jimmy, and I went to his house, and I was like, I'll cut your grass for free if you let me play your drum set. And so each week I would go cut his grass, and then he would let me go bash around on his drum set for like 30 minutes, for as long as he could take it. And then I eventually went in and started taking, I get drum lessons in marching band. I started band in 7th grade or whatever. I got my first drum set when I was like 16, and I came to Rush through that guy. He was a Rush fanatic, and he could play Rush. He was like really good, like out in nowhere where I'm from. And there's just this dude with like one was like a green pearl and like a orange tama or something put together. And this would have been when I started like mowing his grass, like 89, 90. 91, and he played for me, and I listened to one of your all's episodes today, and when y'all were talking about this record, I was like, oh, this is the record that turned me on to Rush. I watched him play Show Don't Tell, and I was hooked. Yes. I was like, I've got to do that, man. Like, that's the thing I have to do, unfortunately, for the rest of my life. So marching band, I have a completely useless music education degree. I have drumsticks that are worth more than that music education degree. I've been teaching drums for 23 years. I taught drumline. Wow. Yeah, I taught drumline in high school for 13 years. And all of that has just been able to finance my music habit. And I've toured all over the, SEC and the Big East territory and a little bit of the ACC territory. And I've played for dozens and dozens of fans who may or may not like what I did. I play in like 2 bands now. One band is an instrumental metal band that's actually named, and because I'm not going to say what it is because I do try to stay anonymous. If you're a fan of my channel, you know this, but my metal band is actually named after a Rush record. And then I play with a female artist who's very much kind of like if Nora Jones had like a badass rock band behind her. And that's what I do now. And unfortunately, because of that thing, not really much gigs going on right now. So yeah, that's my origin story. Yeah. And then the Hobgoblin showed up.
That's cool. That's awesome.
So now, before we get into like everything Rush related, I kind of want to give our non-musician listeners, and I mean, I guess even within the musician subset, there are plenty of people who have absolutely no idea what the function of a drummer is. So I kind of want to set that baseline and understand what it is that a drummer actually does other than just make a crap ton of noise.
Sound organization. We organize sound.
There you go.
That's what we do.
There you go.
If you're a piano player, you're actually making music, right? Drums, we just organize sounds, hopefully in a pleasing manner. But okay, so I'll go first because I've actually got a pretty stock way of describing this, and I'm a big sports guy, so I always put it in perspective of like a drummer is like the point guard on a basketball team. We set everything. We set the pace. We set the volume, right? We distribute what's going to go on. And I'm also a woodworker on the side. So we also are a foundation, right? If you're talking about rock drums, we're talking about jazz drums, it's a little bit different of a job that we do in there. But we are bricklayers and we are point guards on basketball teams. I hope that's not too abstract of an idea, but if you're a drummer, you get what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah. You know, I always felt that answering a question like this was kind of challenging because, you know, the drummer is way more than just a timekeeper. A lot of people think, oh, you're the drummer, you got to make sure nobody speeds up. That's everybody's responsibility, guys. But, you know, they're more than just that. But like, kind of like you just said about being sort of the, you know, you can set the volume and set the tempos and things like that. I think the drums have the capabilities to drive a song to really make it sound faster or slower, whether it's moving faster or slower, it doesn't matter. But the drummer can kind of bring that energy, or they can kind of take it back and let it sit in a really nice pocket. They could change the feel, and they could even change the style. And I think they just add excitement to it. So, I mean, I think just maybe overall, I think the basic function of a drummer is maintaining a steady pulse, adding color, and adding excitement.
And the band can only be as good as the drummer.
That's right.
I mean, you know, that stereotype's true, man. If you've ever recorded a track with like crappy guitars and drums, like it don't work, man. The drums don't hit, then the track can't work.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and why do you think guys like Vinny Colaiuta are on like 5 bazillion recordings?
$1,000 a day drummers, man. I worked with this producer who did all the records for Sublime. This guy named Eddie Ashworth. He's done all kinds of stuff. And, you know, if I'm fucking up, and he would just be like, hey, I'll get one of these $1,000 a day drummers in here. And he'd always talk about like Josh Freese or something like that. And there's a reason why that's a thing. You know what? Like, if you think about it, what's the first? If you're like a band, what's the first guy that gets replaced when the producer comes in? So, like, your local band does good, that drummer's gone, dude. How many times? Like, dude, I just taught "Sugar We're Going Down Swinging" by fucking the other emo band.
Fallout Boy.
Fallout Boy, right? Okay. There's no way that drummer played that. That's Josh Freese.
Oh, Freese he's on so much, man.
He's on so much that you don't know about.
That's right. Yeah. And even the stuff you know about, you're like, man, this grooves like crazy.
Yeah. I know that's him on that track. It has to be.
He's great. He's so great.
So that's how important we are. If the drummer isn't good enough in the band, you're going to get replaced by someone better.
Yep.
Yeah. So like, as a drummer, how do you approach like coming up with patterns or stuff for songs? Like, is it just like you're like, oh, this pattern would work for this kind of song, or is it like kind of instinct and just like what goes into it when you're doing a drum part?
Well, you know, for me, I definitely have like, you know, set rhythms and patterns that I'm comfortable with, because that's just, I think all of us individually, we gravitate towards something that we're comfortable with. It's just kind of how we're put together. But when I come up with stuff for a song, and I was in an original band in college, and our styles were very varied, and it was really, really fun. So I was really great friends with a guitar player who wrote most of the stuff. So one of the things I want to know is, well, what's the inspiration from the song? How did you get inspired musically and lyrically? Like, where is this coming from? Because that really helps to kind of set the tone and the style of the song. I listen to the music. I usually kind of play around and see, well, what's going to fit? Is it sort of like, you know, your standard beat that you just playing? Is it some kind of rhythmic pattern, something like that? And at the beginning, I'll just keep trying different things until something works. And I mean, I think, well, you didn't ask this yet, but I'll wait till you ask more of that. But even like with that, we were going through one song in particular, and it was a very busy guitar part, a lot of picking, and it was really busy. And the bass came in and was doing stuff, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, what can I do? What really fits? And I decided at that point, you know what? A shaker fits. I'm not going to play a drum kit part because it's not right for the song, right? So just being able to listen to all of that, the song as a whole, I think really, you know, doing this, you know, enough times really kind of inspires you to pick something that suits the song.
Okay. Would you Do you have anything to add to that, Steve?
Man, well, what that is a good example of like how everyone has different approaches. I think I go specifically instrument to instrument. I go bass player first, and I want to see if he or she is going to inform what I'm going to play. And then if that's not working, I'm going to go to a guitar player and see if he or she has something that's going to inform what I play. I've gotten hell on my channel before when I've said that like drums really for me are just the thing that I make songs with. I love songs. I'm a song fanatic, and I like some prog. I love Rush, obviously, and I think one of the things that people forget about Rush is you get all so stuck in the virtuosity of it all. But dude, you can go sing Tom Sawyer later. You know what I mean? You can go sing Ghost of a Chance later. You're not going to go sing something by Periphery. You know what I mean? So like for me, it's just about song craftsmanship. Not to sound pretentious again, I think of myself as like a cabinet maker because I am on the side. But when I'm composing for a song, I'm thinking like a composer. I want to make sure that my parts match exactly what's going on, the mood. You know, if it's a minory sounding song, I want to think about playing, and I know this, how can I sound this pretentious already? But I want to sound like I'm playing a minor drum part, and if it's an uplifting super major Beato type song, I want to make sure that I'm playing major sounding drums, right? It's the one thing that worthless music education degree did give me is to think in those terms. So for me, it's the thing that I love the most. It's why I have to have podcasts on when I go to sleep, because I'm just always trying to compose the songs that my bands play. And I play in like original bands pretty much exclusively now. Not that I never played covers, because I did that shit a lot. So, but when I'm in bed, I'm just playing Brother Chris's bass part, and how can I find something that outlines his part. And really something we didn't talk about is trying to make everyone sound better through what you do. That's maybe my modus operandi. And I think that the best drummers play without an ego. We don't care. And well, let's be honest, there's a lot of drummers out there that do want to make sure they get their shit in. But like a good drummer, if the song calls for AC/DC, and they just do AC/DC, and they don't care about getting all their chops in, right? Now, but if the song calls for chops, then they have the wisdom to put those chops in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's it, man. I just want to make the best sounding composition from the drum part.
Yeah, and that's awesome that you said it the way you do, because I think a lot of people don't think of creating drum parts as a kind of composing. When a lot of people think composing, they probably think melody and harmony, but we are still composing, and we're adding the things, like just like you said, Steve, we're adding, to the song, we're creating something, we're enhancing it. We want to make the other musicians sound good. And yeah, I love how you said, leave your ego you were saying basically leave your ego at the door. And that's the way to do it. I mean, you hear somebody like Steve Jordan, who's got the pocket the size of Texas, and I mean, you can't help but just kind of sit in there and just smile and rock. But I mean, there's no flashy chop stuff, but it's not needed.
And the thing is, when you hear him play, that's there.
Oh yeah,
you have to have those. There. You have to have those over the top chops to get to that pocket. You know what I mean? Yep. And that pocket, unfortunately, you can't write it down. You either have it or you don't. You know what I mean? Like you could write out an Anderson .Paak drum part, but more than likely you're not going to make it sound like that. That's that metaphysical mojo that you just can't quantize. You know what I mean? It's finale and whatever other composition software that you have will never make Steve Jordan happen in a box.
Yep, you got it.
But when you say composition, a lot of people don't think drums composition, but Rush fans do.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it was actually your channel, the very first video, I think, Steve, that I saw of yours. You were talking about the question of, was Neil the best drummer to ever live? and you were addressing that whole.
That's the reason why I say anonymous, because there's still Rush fans that want to find me for not saying that Neil Peart is the greatest drummer in the world. First of all, I'll never say who is the greatest drummer in the world, because who the hell am I? But I will tell you this, man. Neil wouldn't say that he's the greatest drummer in the world. But what I said is he's the greatest composer of drums. He is the Mozart. He is the Rachmaninoff of drum set playing. If you listen to Neil's drum parts, and especially on the two songs we're going to talk about today, you can follow the thread. You know you're in the A section. You know you're in the B section. You know you're in the C section, right? That's the genius of Neil Peart. It's not the crazy chops, because like if you compare him to these just straight assassin murderers that are going on right now, like Board Kolstad, and like, all these YouTube shred guys, man, it's different weaponry. It's different weaponry that they're playing with, right?
Yeah.
Neil is the most thoughtful, mindful composer of drums ever. Is he the greatest drummer of all time? I'm not going to say if he is or isn't, but I know that Neil has said that he wasn't. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm going to listen to what the big man says. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's it. And that's what we're going to talk. For me, when we talk about these songs, it's all going to be from a compositional standpoint. It's goosebump shit when you think about the genius of what he can do, or what he did. What he did on the drum set. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with you. Even like with this whole, greatest drummer of all time. I'm with you on that too, because I think it's impossible to say that any one drummer is the greatest drummer of all time. There's first of all, there's far too many variables, different styles, and different ways to determine this criteria. And a lot of Rush fans say Neil is the greatest. Neil is probably, he is definitely my favorite, rock or prog, if you want to think that right, but rock kind of drummer. For sure, he is my favorite. But I don't think one person goes in the greatest of all time category. I think it's an emotional debate rather than something that's quantified. I completely agree.
Because, man, I mean, totally agree. We didn't hear Neil play any Latin shit. You know what I mean?
No.
You know what I'm saying? No. And there's a greatest Latin drummer out there somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he dabbled in jazz, homeboy dabbled in jazz, you know what I mean? And there's a little something in Leave That Thing Alone too.
Sure. But, and when he did that, when he studied with Freddie Gruber and got even more deep into it, he's always had a love for jazz and big band. He's had a love for those drummers. And when he studied and got into it, he practiced that more. And of course, when you practice anything, you improve. And it's amazing that he did this, right? It was after it was right before the Test for Echo album that he decided to study that.
Traditional grip and change his stuff all around.
His kit. I mean, here's a drummer who is so accomplished, has done so much for the music industry and for the drum industry, like so much. And he decided, I want to better myself. I mean, that's amazing. It's amazing. And that playing and stuff that you hear, that sort of jazziness that he practiced so much, you could hear it on Test for Echo, which is probably why Test for Echo is way up at the top of my favorite Rush albums. I love his playing on that. It's amazing. Blows me away.
Yeah, and I think you guys hit on some really great things. And it's a huge pet peeve of mine when anyone tries to treat art the same way that you treat sports. There are just so many factors that cannot be objective when you're breaking down art. And if you're trying to pick favorites or pick the best when it comes to drumming or piano or any instrument, you're always going to end up having, like you said, Jim, you're going to end up having an emotional argument with someone.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, check out any comment section ever whenever this question is brought up, and people are just dug in John Bonham, dug in Neil Peart. But why and I think the more interesting question is, why to you does this particular artist speak to you? And that I think would make a lot of difference if people would approach it that way, rather than trying to say, well, this guy, he for sure is just objectively the best, because that's impossible.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And who cares?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, is a song better? Like, if I gave you a song that sucked and I was like, this is the best drummer in the world, and you're like, but this song still sucks, it doesn't matter.
And now going
great.
back to composing for a song, is there a difference when you're composing a drum part for an instrumental versus a song with lyrics?
For me, it conceptually the same. I still want to know where the inspiration for the instrumental came from, because chances are it's not just, a flurry of notes that somebody decided to put together. Chances are it's coming from something, right? So I still want to know where is that inspiration. But, I also, just like Steve said, you hear the other instruments, you want to know what they're playing. From a drum perspective, how do I enhance what they're doing? How do I complement what they're doing? How do I enhance the song? Whatever the case may be. But I do think that for an instrumental, there is more of a chance to stretch out, right? So you can stretch out and make, add some things, crazy flurry of chops that can fit. They got to fit. It's got to fit the song. You can't, I mean, for me, I never add a bunch of chop stuff because, hey, I worked on this lick yesterday and check it out. It's so cool. No.
Good man. Good
Does
man.
it fit the song? Yeah, thank you. Does it fit the song? I'll do it. Does it not fit the song? No. Let's make sure it fits. But and I've heard instrumentals, and even on some Rush instrumentals, Neil's not going, balls out the entire time with crazy chop stuff. It is still a song. It's still a composition. And each instrument plays a specific role. I hope that kind of answers it.
That was great. Steve?
Well, I'm actually in an instrumental metal band.
Oh, yeah.
And
cool.
and it's
cool.
I've only been doing, I'd never been in a metal band before. I've pretty much played in every kind of style you can play, and it's one I hadn't done yet, and I wanted to make sure before I retire and or shuffle off that I did that. And we just decided, like, man, finding like a metal singer that isn't embarrassing is very, very difficult.
Hard.
Let's be honest, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard.
So, we just decided to not do that. And the way that we set it up is, we have a lead line. So in a lot of ways in that metal band, we almost have the format of like a jazz standard. So if there's an A section, there's a melody over that A section. And then there's a B, there's a lead melody. So even like when you think about, especially like Leave That Thing Alone, all those sections have lead lines. Like that first part, the lead line where the guitar part is just staying on that like Canadian white boy funk guitar part, and then the bass is the movement, is the melody, and then that Doctor Who part that comes in on the B section, and dude, is that not the fucking Doctor Who theme song? So close. So I think that drummers that aren't wise think instrumental, yay, I don't have to worry about burying vocals. Let's go hog. But if you listen to all of the great instrumentals, the drums are still just playing like they would if there's a vocal part, because if there's a melody, it doesn't matter if the guitar player's playing the melody or if there's someone singing the melody. You're still supporting that. But I think that Jim's very correct. That it's like, oh boy, all those 30-second note runs I was practicing, I could do now. But you know what I mean? You still just want to make the good song. You still want to make the good song.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's funny that I mentioned that, and you agree with it. It reminded me of a video I saw from Steve Smith, who was the former drummer of Journey, who's founded the band Vital Information. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but the paraphrase of what he said is, he basically said that I don't practice all this crazy chop stuff to play this crazy chop stuff. I practice the crazy chop stuff to play what I'm inspired to play for the song, whatever that comes to. And that's always stuck with me.
If you watch my channel, Jim, you really are we soulmates? Because my channel, well, check this out. That's really funny you fucking brought that up, because my channel's slogan that I end every video with is keep practicing until it's easy. That came from a Steve Smith video. It was a hot drummer volume 2.
Hot licks,
Jim,
hot
what you got? Here's what he. Yes, it had Peter Erskine on it, and I had it on VCR. That's how I had that thing.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And what he actually said, holy shit, that's such a small world. What he actually said is when he remember he had that really he was like bald, he had the cheesy fucking ponytail. Yeah, he's looking bad. But he said that he doesn't practice to get better because that's a subjective term. Like, what's better? He practices to make what he's doing easier. That's the exact quote, and I've sold a bunch of t-shirts with that slogan on it. Keep practicing till it's easy. Awesome. And I heard that when I was like 13 or 14, and I got that same videotape from the guy that I used to mow his lawn and play his drum set. He gave me this because he was like, God, you're terrible, go watch this. And because I didn't know what I was doing. And that first video, that piece of wisdom I'm 44 years old, and I probably saw that when I was like 12 or 13. And when I practice, I want to be easy. And when I talk to my students about like when I'm trying to figure out if they've gotten better from the last time I saw them, I ask them, yeah, you can play the notes, but are you still struggling with it? Are you laboring over it, or is it easy? Because it's not performable. It's not truly performable until it's easy, until you can have a conversation and still just play and not mess it up. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
That's funny you bring that up. Hot Drummer Volume 2 or Volume 3.
Yeah, whichever one I forget, but
we have Peter Erskine was on it. Peter Erskine was on it. Steve Smith and the guy from Dixie Dregs.
Rod Morgenstein.
Rod Morgenstein was the other dude on there.
Man, I love Rod. He's so great.
Yep. My gosh, wow, that's such a connection.
That's so great, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I would be remiss if we didn't hit on some of the basic stuff, because you've been mentioning like being in the pocket, chops, and stuff like that. So for people who I'm sure like ages ago were like, I have no idea what these people are talking about. What are some of these? What's some of this drum lingo that you're talking about?
Well, so the chops is the ability to play and to execute cleanly. Not only fast runs and fast rhythms around the drum, but complicated rhythms, complex rhythms, moving from drum to drum, incorporating the hands and the feet, so moving between the hands and the feet and things like that. So when I say chops, that's kind of what I think there. When I talk about pocket, I'm talking about how does the song feel? And this is so subjective, right? We had I think an hour-long discussion in a music theory class at college once on this stuff, right? What is groove? What is feel, right? Does it groove? Does it feel good? Does it kind of make you move? I mean, even listening to something like, I'll take, this is stretching like very far from Rush, right? But take Hall & Oates. Okay, now I forgot the song. That's really bad. There's a song that Hall & Oates did with CeeLo Green on, or Daryl Hall did it rather, on the Live at Daryl's House, and it's a Hall & Oates tune. And Brian Dunn is the drummer for that. And I don't know who the bass player is, but when they started, Brian just started with a snare hit, and he starts playing the groove, and the bass player comes in, and that thing it creates such a pocket. That's a great song to listen to see what this pocket sounds like. That you just kind of sit back in. It just feels really good. Something that feels good. Pocket's so hard to describe, man.
I say,
what do you say?
Pocket is a lot like pornography. I can't explain it to you, but I know it when I hear it. You know what I mean? It's this mystical black magic mojo shit. You know what I mean? Like I say this to students all the time. I could line up, right now I think I got like 52 students right now. I could line up all 52 students and I could have them play the same exact groove at the same exact tempo, and it's all going to feel different. Now, if you want to talk about the nuts and bolts of it, it's like, are you right on the metronome? Are you a little behind the metronome? Are you on top of the metronome? And that would be if you want to talk about the mechanical part of what groove is. But man, it's just, you just hear it, you just know it. When you hear it, you know it. Like when you said, like, go listen to Steve Jordan play John Mayer live, John Mayer trio doing that. But I was thinking more I was thinking more along the line of the groove that he played on the Ray Charles cover that they do.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, and that's all he does all the way through, and it never moves. That's groove. Every AC/DC song ever. That groove. That grooves. Everything that Anderson .Paak breathes on, that's groove. But you can't quantize it. You can't write it down, much to composer's dismay. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you just can't, it's black magic. It's the only way I can describe it.
Definitely.
So not to even pull back to an even more basic level, because there was an episode of the podcast that I mentioned that I can kind of fake my way through some drumming, but I have absolutely no rudiments. What are rudiments for people who have no idea what those are?
The rudiments. You want me to go first? Well, I think it's a pattern that can provide a foundation or expand technique. So, and they're patterns that are made up of singles and doubles. I think every single rudiment is made up of singles and doubles, unless you get into something like triple stroke roll or something like that. What I tell a lot of like non-drummers are like, well, what are these rudiments? What do you do? And it's like, well, you play saxophone, right? They're like, yeah. I said, rudiments are kind of like practicing our rudiments is like you practicing your scales.
Good man.
Comparison that I give. Oh yeah. Oh, sorry, man. But and any drummer, like I've been playing for 42 years. I'm 54 years old. I've been playing drums for 42 years. I still practice rudiments. It's not something that you practice and you could say, forget it, right? Every drummer will still work on their foundations. They'll still work on their technique. They'll still try to improve themselves. And to me, the rudiments is kind of the base of all of that. That's how I view the rudiments.
Man, I just think they're just tools in your toolbox. As a drum teacher, they're the boring, meticulous things that I have to trick students into actually practicing. You know what I mean? Because like what does RLRR mean? What does LRLL actually mean? I think one of the big mistakes that drum teachers make, man, I had this guy who was trying to like impress me with his teaching. He's like, yeah, the very first thing that I do is I have a student sit down and I have them go right, left. I'm like, that fucking sucks, man. That's boring. Like, well, I try to get my kids to play a Tom Petty song the very first time they come in. Rudiments are a necessary thing. They're just another tool. I think sometimes you can they're so important, but they can sometimes be overly seen as too important. Meg White can't play a fucking paradiddle, but I love everything the White Stripes do. You know what I mean? There's not a flam accent on any Led Zeppelin song, but they're a necessary evil. They make your hands work. That's it. You know what I mean? They make your hands work, and then you can apply them to the drum set. You came from marching band as well. That stuff. If you go out there and do the work, and it's boring and it sucks, man. It's the first thing I tell students. This is boring. Like, you're a piano player, Adam, right? Do you really want to sit down and, play arpeggios for 15 minutes? No, you want to play a Hungarian Rhapsody, but you have to do that to be able to play the Hungarian Rhapsody. It's like it's your peas and carrots to get to dessert. You know what I mean? It's a necessary thing. And that's what rudiments are. You know what I mean? Like, I've had my lead singer of an old band came in and was like, oh, is paradiddles even necessary? I'm like, I play them in your songs. That you're right. Of course they are. Guitar player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that's all they are. They're just like what Jim said. They're arpeggios and Beato and the scales, the things that make you good on your instrument. It's one of the things that you can do to make yourself good on your instrument.
And any drummer was like, I'm not gonna. I don't have to mess with that. I'll sit down with my pad and I'll spend an hour going through stick control because I still go through stick
all
control
the time. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And then when I'm done with that, even if it's the next day, I'll sit down on the kit and I'll be playing, some jazz patterns, and I'm like, this feels way easier. There's a reason it feels easier.
Yep.
Right. So for anybody who kind of blows off things like rudiments and doesn't really concentrate on the foundations, don't ignore your foundations because they will make your life easier.
Mm-hmm.
They really do.
Because I think of it like this, like the thing that keeps me up at night, that gives me nightmares, is being in the rehearsal space, someone writing a song, staring at me saying, do something good at this, and I can't come up with something. and you know what I mean? And maybe if I would have practiced through G.L. Stone's stick control, maybe I would have found something. Maybe if I worked through Advanced Funk Studies by whatever that
Rick
name is. Rick Latham. Maybe I would have something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's all just tools to make art. You know what I mean? If you want to be a painter, you got to be able to shade. You got to know how to do distance. You got to be able to, draw a perfect circle. It's that. You know what I mean? It's just all tools to get to an end. It's all means to an end.
Yep.
So we've got a couple minutes left. And I want to put you guys on the spot. I want you to say, so you're going to be spitting out two things. One, if you to tell someone to listen to a Rush song, to listen to the drums, what would you give them? And then who's a drummer that someone should check out?
Okay.
To widen
all
their
right.
horizons.
So a drummer, but that's not Neil, just any other drummer
That's not Neil.
Okay. All right. So for a Rush song, it was a Rush song to check out the drum part stuff. Mm-hmm. The first one that comes to my mind is probably The Spirit of Radio. There's some really excellent, there's some great drum runs in there. Neil's playing the signature ride pattern in there. That is just so cool. And he's playing just kind of like typical rock kind of grooves as well in there. And there's a song I think is just a great composition and it really highlights them. So for me, that it would be The Spirit of Radio for that one. Well, go ahead.
Okay, I was going to go around.
Go ahead.
Man, I'm going to go just basic pumpkin spice and say Tom Sawyer. It's the epitome of everything that you love about Neil and everything you love about Rush. We now know, we've heard so many interviews about how Neil says that as long as that is a challenge for him to play every night, he will never lose interest in drums. Everything that you want to know about Rush and Neil fucking Peart is Tom Sawyer. I hate to be that dude. I want to be like, I want to go like some obscure B-side or something, but like it's Tom Sawyer. It's it. That's the one. If you were to try to get somebody into it, if you had this question on this podcast, Adam, like what song would you tell somebody this is a song that'll get you into Rush?
I mean, it's always got to be either Tom Sawyer or Spirit of Radio.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
educated Rush fans.
Great, such great songs, such great playing, and they're amazing. All right, so a drummer that I would recommend for people to check out to broaden their horizons.
Yep,
it's going to come from my second favorite band, Jeff Porcaro.
Yeah,
man, talk about $1 million in every single groove for that guy. Good gosh. His playing with Toto was absolutely amazing. I mean, even like, I love like the kind of 80s music stuff, right? But if you check out like, anything from Isolation or Fahrenheit, and I know people are like, it's kind of cheesy, right? His playing is fantastic. go to the seventh one. Even a song that sounds easy, like Only the Children, you sit there and try to play it and you're like, I can't cop this feel. It's so hard. And then if you want something that's a little bit more complex, that I didn't even know, this is how dumb I am. I didn't even know this was Jeff until one of my bands played it, and I had to learn it. Lido Shuffle from Boz Scaggs.
Of course.
I'm like, oh, well, that's why the song sounds so good. Right? It's Jeff Porcaro. That was actually basically Toto and Boz Scaggs recording a song.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing about Toto is they were just the band that everybody used, and they got sick of just getting, union wages.
They did, man.
So they decided like, hey, let's get some hits. Let's get some mailbox money.
Yeah.
Like that's where the real money's at.
Yeah, but I would, Jeff Porcaro, I would suggest people check out because he is just such a great player, such a huge groove, fantastic chops, right? And if you think, oh, this guy doesn't have chops, try to play Rosanna. Try to play his shuffles, right? They're not easy. Not easy. Yep.
So I'm going to just say my all-time favorite drummer, which is completely not like the music that we're going to talk about today. And, I'm going to put this on my channel, and everybody watching my channel knows that I'm going to say, for me, it's Levon Helm. Levon Helm is my all-time favorite drummer. I met his daughter a couple months ago. She invited me to the barn. I did another podcast just talking about Levon. Yeah, I'm going to the barn, bro.
Man, I'm jealous. I am so jealous right now.
If you go on my channel and go to my community tab, there's a picture of me and Amy. And Levon is he's my everything. I have a saying that I say on my channel. Phil Collins made me want to play drums. Dave Grohl made me want to be in a band, but Levon Helm made me want to be great. And Levon Helm is my guy. That's my guy.
It. Man, yeah. And I remember watching The Last Waltz. I watched The Last Waltz. I think my mom got me the DVD. This was like a long time ago. And I wasn't too familiar with the band, or Levon when she got it for me. And I'm watching it and I'm like, oh my gosh.
What have I been doing?
Holy cow. How did I miss this? What is wrong with me? Yeah. Oh, love it. I love it. Yeah. Levon's great. So great.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. It's been a blast. Absolute joy to hear you guys talking about what you're passionate about. And hopefully for all you listeners that aren't that into drums or maybe don't know what the heck we were talking about for most of this, hopefully this will help you pay a little bit more attention in the songs that you know and love, and give some props to those drummers who help keep everybody in check.
Yeah, man. We're how many times I've played a gig and people have come up to me later and be like, man, that band was sweet. It's like, yeah, I was in it. Nobody cares about us. That's the thing that's what makes Neil so special. There's only a handful of drummers that when you think about a band, you think about the drummer. Led Zeppelin comes to mind. Toto for sure, but I think that's more for like music wonks like us.
Musicians, yes.
You know what I mean? But like,
Absolutely.
my mom knows who John Bonham is. You know what I mean? My mom knows who Neil Peart is. There's very few, man. James Brown had to remind you all to give the drummer some. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody cares about us back there staring at everybody's asses. You know what I mean? Go check us out.
But you know who does care about us? The bass player.
And the singer.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much.
Yeah. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you for having me, Adam.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much. All right. Have a good one, everybody. Once again, we'd like to thank Steve and Jim for joining us on today's episode. Such great insights. And, as someone who knows just enough about drumming to appreciate the difficulty that it is to learn that instrument, man, just mind expanded, appreciation for Neil skyrocketed, and just appreciation for those who are willing to learn the drums and be in sometimes a thankless position. I think sometimes more so than even bassists. I'll venture to say that. But no, Jim, Steve, so glad to have you on. Welcome back anytime. And in fact, this upcoming battle episode, we will have Steve back on to talk about YYZ and Leave That Thing Alone. He's already posted the full remarks on his YouTube channel. Go check that out. And I will have links to that in the description, and I'll have links to Jim's social media so you can reach out and say hey to him. But for the battle episode, I'm going to bridge some of our conversation that Steve and I had. Not because any of it's bad at all, but I want you to have to go to his channel to see the whole thing of it. Because, we aren't going to be able to do justice to our conversation and to the conversation that Julianne and I are going to have about these two incredible songs. So go check out that video, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time on The Rush Discussion.